is up?
What's going on,
What is
everybody?
up? Like clockwork.
Hmm.
How we doing?
Good evening. Ah, you know what? I feel like we are more prepared than we have been at other times.
I I feel that. Well, we actually have I mean,
We have
all the way
outside
around.
resources.
We have outside resources. We actually have a calendar that has some stuff on it,
Yeah,
and yeah, it's almost like we're believing our own BS about being professional.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Not quite, but close. Kill,
Uh,
welcome. Glad you could make
yeah.
it. Welcome to the early crowd, the pre-show. What should we talk about for our pre-show here, fellas?
Well, I don't know. I want to ask Kill a lot real quick. So is a dwarven DM minute similar to a New York minute or the opposite?
You know what? A
Good.
Dwarven DM minute arrives exactly when it means to. Not a minute early,
Hmm.
not a minute late, but exactly whenever it
Hmm.
is most convenient for the dwarf.
Precisely on time.
Was
My
the most
time.
convenient.
That's right.
Uh, do you guys want to hear a very, very short? You know what? I'm not even gonna ask. Uh, I had the best tier 4 encounter last night
That you ran or that you
that I
were a
ran.
part of? Okay.
That I ran. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Uh, it was in an undisclosed mod, and I modified it slightly to where, in order
No.
to get into the underground cavern where the party needed to go, the only way through was to swim through a lava tube. And their guide was an entity for whom that was not an issue. But if they wanted to get into the cavern, they had to swim up through or down through this lava tube and arrive in the cavern, right? And I'm like, tier 4. Lava ain't gonna be a problem. It's a puzzle, right? Like, is this really lava? Is it an illusion? Oh, it's really lava. Is it gonna hurt us? Oh, it's definitely gonna hurt you. But you're tier 4, you have like 197 hit points, and you have 37 spell options. You can figure this out. They would not get into that lava. They would not. Which of course you're like, sure, right? And then finally, one of them's like, went out like this, like, I'm gonna go consult my patron. It's a warlock, right? Go consult his patron outside. So he, like, communed with his patron, and his patron's like, go in the lava, dummy. Like, you just fought X, Y, and Z. Like, you can survive this. Like, why is lava the thing that you won't go up against, right?
Because it's
And
lava.
and he's like, all right, fine. So he goes and he's like, I run in and like I'm like I commit, I dive down into it, and I am not, even if it hurts, I'm not gonna scream. I'm like, great, cool. Roll me a wisdom save. Succeeds on his wisdom save. DC 20. I'm like, you all watch as your companion runs back into the room, like jumps into the lava. You see his eyes bulge, all his clothes catch on fire, and then he just like melts into the flame without a sound. They're like, I'm like, all right. So what did the rest of you do? I didn't do damage. I didn't do anything.
Didn't even skip a beat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was great. Finally, like inch by inch, they all like, I guess we're gonna go until the lot, like brace themselves for it. I think they finally like decided that, well, if our guide did it, and if that's the place where we need to go, we can figure this out. None of them cast any warding magic
Not a
at
single
all.
resistance or anything like that at all.
Nope, nope. Just
Awesome.
here we go, dive in. And, and I'm like, of course, this is not something I do, but I'm like, I would have won so much money if I had bet with John and Troy that I could kill an entire tier 4 party with lava willingly.
They willingly killed themselves. They
Yeah.
sacrificed
So so
themselves to it.
so they swam up the tube. We rolled for a couple rounds of lava damage. They, because it's not that long. It was like magically infused lava, so like, and they all rolled wisdom saves to like maintain their composure, like, and fight their way through it. And they swam up and got out. And like, there's rules for how much damage lava does to you every round, and it was like a fraction of their health. So I'm like,
Really? I
oh,
thought,
it's
I
like
thought it was like a
60-10 per
significant amount of
round.
damage. Wasn't it like
yeah,
10d10 points of damage or something silly like
Yeah,
that?
but that's nothing. I mean, they took like 32 points of damage around, but that's nothing for a tier 4 19th
They
level
were only
party.
taking like they were taking a third of the max roll, so they weren't
It's 60-10. According to the
6d10.
module,
That's terrible.
lava is 60-10.
Let me tell you something. I've never come in contact with lava before, but if I were a betting man, I'd say
yeah,
it's more
yeah.
than a fireball. All right, it's just like that's
It's
a
more than a
guess.
fireball.
Well, 66 is a fireball, right? Or is it 86? I don't remember.
I think it's 86 or I don't know. It's a good question. Chat, help us.
Yeah.
My knowledge scores are going down by the second here.
It-
How many is it? No, we're talking about like lava as if it's not molten rock. It's
Right.
not just
It was
hot water. It's not boiling
there's
water.
what book was it that came out not too long ago?
Well,
Was
the
it?
Dungeon Master's Guide has it in there, like with
Yeah,
the
but
actual numbers,
they
right?
a different book came out. Um,
it was delightful. Listen, I don't like
Xanathar's,
I
I
agree
think.
that it was a weird, yes, kill a lot, of course. Of course. So one of them said, "I'll tie a rope to me and then I'll tie the other into you and I'll go through and if if it, then you'll know if I'm able to make it. I'll like tug on the rope or I won't tug on the rope." And they're like,
Rope.
the rope's gonna burn up.
Hang on. Let me tell you what the rope will do. The rope will
Yeah.
burn up before it actually hits the lava. The lava is that hot. By the
Yeah.
way, in the DMG page 249, thank you, Stack Exchange. It's 18d10
Yeah.
to be submerged in lava. It is 10d10 just to wade through lava, which I don't understand why that makes a friggin' hill of beans difference, but all right, that's cool.
So anyhow, it was
Yes,
delightful. Um,
They
uh,
come out naked.
there was
nude.
so much confusion, and it was probably one of the weirder combats. But you know what? For tier 4, you got to make something weird, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, so
I cannot
yeah,
believe that
it
they
was
didn't do anything about it. They're just like, "Yep, here we
no
go. Just gonna
nothing,
power
nothing.
through
Now
it."
there were some they were hoarding resources for later on, and they were being
Mm.
very careful with what they did in that moment. But still, to do nothing was such a
See,
shock to me.
it's probably a good thing I didn't play, because I'm a in that game I was a Warforged,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, no, I'm not getting in lava.
There would have been some interesting stuff if you would have gotten in that lava.
It
No,
was like
no spoilers.
it would have been, you're gonna cast something on me. I don't care what it is, but I'm not getting in that lava just to get
I
in
don't
that
care if
lava.
it's illusion. I'm just
Yeah, I don't, you're going to make me feel better about this because I'm not
yeah.
just going to jump into lava. I
Yeah,
am
it
made
was
of
great.
metal.
Right. That's right.
That's funny.
Well, chat, we have a rousing uh session for you
Star-studded
today.
session.
Star-studded.
Yeah.
We figured out the solution to making our podcast better. And that is to insert
I knew where this is
better
going.
people into it. Yeah.
Less
whether
of us,
whether they want
more
to,
of better people.
we
That's
invite
right.
other people onto the show that you know, but that they don't know that they're actually there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, no, I think
I,
Troy and I were chatting, right,
yeah.
this last week. I think right after our recording
Hmm.
a few days ago, and we were chatting about a couple things, and we're like, "Oh, this would be a great episode."
Yeah.
And so we just said, "Well, let's make that happen," and lo and behold, it happened. So
And we didn't tell John
we
Nope.
didn't tell John.
Nope.
until today.
Nope. And by the way, not only did you not tell John, but when you told John, John goes, "I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to exactly contribute to that, but I'll find something. It'll be fine." And then when did I find out about it? Like this afternoon. So
Listen,
every
I
spare moment
tried.
that I had was me on my phone going, "No,
Well,
no, search, no,
because I had wanted to tell you after Sunday's recording,
yes."
and then you're like, "Hey guys, I gotta go. I'll be right back." Okay,
And I know, yes, that's true.
and we
That's
waited,
right.
and we waited.
Yeah, that's
In a true John fashion, he didn't come back.
well. There were things happening.
Extenuating
Extenuating
circumstances.
circumstances were occurring that had to do with
Oh,
the
yeah,
things that I'd
yeah.
created.
Your other family. Yeah, whatever.
I know. I know. But look, believe me, my wife has already referred to the two of you as my DM wives that I go and visit twice. That I have visitation with twice a week at the minimum.
Why?
Troy, I've always wanted to be a sister wife with you, so now
Yeah.
that
Well,
dream's
Why?
there it
made
Why
a
is.
can't?
reality.
Why can't we
Yeah,
be co-husbands?
I
I don't
sure.
know because ask
John's
her, man.
wife
You're asking the
gave
wrong
the name,
person
right?
here.
Yeah,
Like, let me go get
yeah.
her really quick. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh shit, he's not coming back. We're done.
I'll never just dead screen for the rest of the night. Ah, they're on to me.
Oh my God, Dungeon Wives. There you go, Kill That. That's
Dungeon
great.
Life. I love it.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hit record, and then we're gonna get into this, and we're gonna have snippets of other videos for you here on stream. Uh, and so don't be surprised when you are really impressed for about 6 minutes total
Yeah,
of this episode.
because none of us are talking.
They're like, ooh, the
Yeah,
production values really went up all of a sudden, and then dropped significantly lower seconds later.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I think they're kind of used to that anyway. When the timer goes off exactly as it's supposed to, and then we show up.
That's
So,
true. Everybody's really
That's right.
disappointed. Like, oh man.
oh,
Well,
Oh.
Troy, are we recording?
we are.
All right, let's do this thing. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Bite-Sized Gaming Podcast, the podcast that's serving up a buffet of RPG topics to get you through your week. My name is Zach, and the hosts joining me this evening, as per usual, are the Dapper DM, Troy Sandlin.
Hello.
Oh.
Oh, man. All right, cool.
very
Follow
foppish.
that up. Dwarven DM, John Christian.
Lolly ho. I had to.
All
I
right.
was trying to
You're
go
still
like on the other end of the spectrum on that one.
You're still going with that. That
I mean,
Yeah.
that's like
Well,
it's a thing in the
also,
house
like-
now. I'm greeted with that by Gabriel every once in a while, and I love it. So
Well,
I also love how when John is put in the spotlight to give his address, it's like when one of the spelling bee kids steps up to the mic and they like amp themselves up. There's like this, like build up to launch, and I'm like, yeah, to lolly ho. That's
I'm
great.
Lolly ho.
leans into the microphone.
Yeah,
Lolly
Yeah.
ho.
yeah.
That's right.
Oh man. All right. So hey, we've got a regular episode for you tonight. Though a regular episode that has had a lot of actually a significant amount of work put in behind it. Lots of times we come in with like, hey, this came up at our table, let's chat about it,
Mhm.
which is pretty easy and makes for good discussion. This is not one of those episodes, so I guess it isn't a regular episode. Um, we're going to steal from the masters, as we typically do, for this episode tonight. We're going to be showing you snippets of other DMs, other
Well known.
well-known entities, short clips that underscore points, underscore ideas that we have taken to heart and tried to emulate in our own tables. We just got done doing the Critical Role review or Critical Role discussion with Thomas a few days ago. And, you know, one of the things that we talked about there was why do we watch streamed games or streamers in general, right? And I think one of the consensus answers that we came up with was because certain streams or certain entities online help us hone in on what we want our games to be like.
Yeah.
So we're bringing that to you today, getting you a little bit of a feel for that with these short clips, and then we'll discuss them. Before we get into any of that, though, John, Troy, nothing has came across my radar as super important, but is there any news in the RPG landscape that you feel needs to be discussed today?
there's a little bit of AL news.
Oh yeah.
Um, the DM rewards or the service
Mm.
rewards documentation has come out
Hmm.
to shock and awe. Some mixed reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Um, some people are banging the AL is dead gong yet again because
Mm-hmm.
something new came out. Um, Others are like, okay, hey, this is cool. So,
Hmm.
I mean, your mileage may vary. You might love it, you might hate it. It doesn't matter to me because they still are not rewarding DMs the way I would like to be rewarded, and that's with DM stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Hmm.
it's all about a DM character, a DM player character that when a DM actually gets a chance to play, they can
Yeah.
play those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My thing is, and all you AL admins and WotC out there listening, because I know you are, I still think it would be really cool if you could choose, if a DM could choose, yes, I want to build a DM character, or I want to be able to do cool stuff as a DM in the game. It would unlock certain things that you could impart upon your
Hmm.
tables and things like that. But
Hmm.
I'm sure I know that's a lot harder to come up with and implement than
Yeah.
player
Hmm.
or DM player character rewards. But it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't gotten to check those out. You did spark a couple of things with me though. This is a small thing, but they're shutting down the DMs Guild Facebook group,
Yep.
Yeah, I
Facebook
saw
page.
that.
So that's the last hurrah. We lost the DMs Guild Creative Circle Facebook group maybe 2 years ago now, and that was a big loss to the DMs Guild community, in my opinion. And now they've kind of decided to shut down basically any presence the DM Guild has on Facebook and move it all to Discord, and just kind of collapse everything down into there. Mixed reviews again, I think is the best way to say that. And then the other thing that popped into my head as you talked about that was we had some delays on some of the official WotC products due to printing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
timelines.
I think that's going to
Um,
keep happening.
yeah, I would say don't imagine that any date that we have right now is a for sure one.
Mm.
And I don't have the dates in front of me, but I was just talking with someone about Netherdeep, the Critical Role thing coming out March 15th. I'm like, that's a fake date. Like I think they're going to be super happy if they hit that, but I'm not going to hold my breath till sometime in April on
Mm-hmm.
that one too.
Yep.
Um,
I that made me think of when you said missing dates. That made me think of one. So I'll make mine pretty brief. On the Dragonlance forefront, right? Uh,
Ah.
so the new book for the new trilogy is coming out apparently in August of 2022. This
oh,
comes from the German Amazon page. There was a the book was not only the date was placed there, but also a snippet, a summary of what the book was about was
ooh,
Oh.
also incorporated. And I don't know how I feel like if I should say anything about it or not, or just make people go out there and look for it. But I'll say this much at least because I don't want to go into spoiler territory. If you want to go in like completely fresh with it, there's a reason why they call it D&D Classic or a Dragonlance Classic because they're going to go back to a time frame in the story pre Summer Flame. I'll leave it
hmm,
at that. And a lot of what I thought they were going to do, I think they're going to do. And I can sidebar that for those that don't want a spoilery type thing. So if you're really interested in it, you can find it. Dragonlance, German, Amazon. I'm sure you can find it out there somewhere or another. But yeah,
right on.
that was mine.
Now, John, before we move over, just so we uh, don't have to restart a clip, I did some finagling. I should have said this before we went live, so I apologize to everyone who's having to suffer through this. But you might check that the screen that we're about to transition to for showing clips,
Mm-hmm.
all the audio stuff is as you want it.
I already thought of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We
Great.
are
All right.
good.
See,
We are good.
this professional thing is starting to like infect us now.
Mm,
Wow, it's
mm, mm.
incredible.
Now, whether
Well,
or not it
then,
works or not, I don't know. But I mean, like, I did think about it, and I tried. So we'll see what
I did
happens.
say starting.
Right. We're thinking
enough.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're thinking about
Killot or Gurk or someone in chat will let us know if we have a problem, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Okay, well then with that, I think that was a quick news segment that lets us dive right into our main topic. You fellas good to go?
Yes.
good to go.
Let's do it. All right, so each of us has brought to the table a couple of clips. Zach cheated and split one of his clips into two shorter ones, so you're gonna have to bear with that cheat.
Shocker.
But the clips are fairly short. I think most of them or all of them are between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a little lead in where the person who picked the clip is going to talk about why they picked this clip. And then afterwards, we'll have a few minutes where all three of us can chat and chat if you want to weigh in too about thoughts about the clip, thoughts about the whatever was being, if you like that sort of thing, or if you feel like that's not something that you put in your toolkit, that's a great thing to talk about too. And then we'll move on to the next one. We're going to go in both of Zach's clips, then both of John's, and then both of Troy's. And then we'll kind of close off. I think Troy has something that he wants to kind of wrap it up with that's a little bit different. So that'll be that. So let's get to it. My first clip, as is most reasonable, comes from our patron saint here on the podcast, Matt Colville.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, I think this was an inevitability, right?
Oh, yes.
I pulled this clip from his Chain campaign, which is a couple of years old now and has been on a very long hiatus through the COVID period. What I like about Matt as a DM is the details of his politics and his intrigue and how all those things interwork in the background. And I like how he structures his combats. Now, his combats are not as entertaining as some people's that you might find online, but they're very D&D. They feel very real, very visceral. I could imagine sitting down and playing at one of his tables and getting an experience like that and being like, that's D&D. So the clip that I've chosen, you're you're not going to be surprised by what it contains, I don't think. But the clip that I've chosen, I think, really emulates to me the feeling that I like to convey about combat and specifically about the opponents that your players face and how they are truly opponents and not just um, an encounter for you to, maneuver through and then on with the story, right? This is a life or death situation with intelligent combatants very, very often. So, John, if you would play clip number 1.
Got it.
So now we begin round 3. The monk goes first. First the monk goes, then king goes. So Larks, you are on deck, and the monk is.
Uh-oh.
Someone blew off.
I think he just died.
You think he's... Thank you.
It's the blow off.
The monk goes, and the monk sees Boots's unconscious form and kicks him once.
No.
Which is an advantage attack because Boots is
1. Double 1.
No, that's a 10 and an 18.
I miss.
18. So that's 2 death saves. That's 1 attack.
He's got those fancy boots on.
Yeah.
The boots. Yeah, the boots only help you if
Are
you're
the boots
conscious.
standing? He's just slumped back.
yeah.
I never fall down.
Yeah, he might still be. S.J. May says, "My name is Boots. You killed my surgeon. Prepare to die."
Prepared to kill me too.
Yeah, prepare to kill me also.
Apparently, this monk can only kill things that are fucking laying down unconscious.
Well, he'll get to you in a minute.
Yeah.
That's so. So yeah, you see the monk goes, and Boots' head explodes.
Jeez.
Boots is dead.
Good
Oh,
lord.
no. What the dickens?
Zach, we can't hear you.
All right, I should have warned you. There we go. All right. Hey, Kill a lot was like +1 to tech, and then Zach immediately removes
Zach
that
bones it.
+1. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Well, okay, so I should have forewarned folks that there's a little bit of language in some of these clips. So apologies if you're watching this with your family. Um, but okay, so of course Zach brings one that not just is a Colville fighting things, but has somebody. Yeah, kill it. Now I know why Zach liked that one. Um, but no, what I like about it though is, uh, you know, the guys down there on the ground, and they're fighting a rival adventuring party, right? That had been set upon them. And when the monk drops someone, he has his flurry of blows still, and instead of moving on to the next person, he's like, I'm gonna put this guy down because that's what he would do. And so he kicks him, removing those two, critical hits, those two death saves, and then he does the punch to the skull and smashes it in, and that's the end of one of the player characters there on the chain. That's the intensity. Now, before we get into it, we got like a 20-second clip here that I want to show that shows why I like this, because this next clip is just a couple of minutes later, and you can tell that incident laser focuses the party.
Mm.
And it gets them all united, it gets them all into it, intense, and they are here to finish this fight in a big way. And that sort of investment is what happens when they believe that this encounter is real. Go ahead and play that next clip, John.
For us, fucking great. What a dragon. I could just tell the monk to kill itself.
Yeah.
All it is.
Punch
Well,
yourself.
do you think it permanently works for us, or
Yeah, let's just get it slit its own throat.
Yeah, if it's permanent, then
Well, I
Then
mean,
we
let's
should-
have
Hang
them
on.
go
I'm
punch
not-
them to death.
yeah.
I'm not
first.
serious. Well, I am, because it killed me and Boots. But I don't like it very much.
Yeah, but let's have them punch the Eldritch
he's
Knight.
had a change of heart, though.
Yeah, all right.
How does-
All right.
All right. So what I love about it, you can see it on all their expressions. The guys down at the bottom, right, are just glowering. The one guy's sitting back like he's dead. The other guy, yeah, like, and they're all talking about like, okay, how can we kill this guy? Is he gonna stay dead? Like, that's the sort of interaction during a combat that I love. When the party is pulling things out of their tool belt, pulling things out of their features, figuring out a way to be successful because there's no way in hell we're gonna let those guys win, right? I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think back to this encounter and several others like this in the chain, and be like, that's how those combats should feel.
Well, yeah.
You are definitely in the camp of every fight should be life or death.
A lot of them, yeah, absolutely. I don't want to waste your time.
I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time.
I think that you definitely, while I don't ascribe to every single, or probably even like, I'm more of like a 60 to 70, 30, 40, somewhere around there. More often than not, they should be threatening encounters, right? Because otherwise they're just throwaways. Every once in a while, or every so often, I think it's important for the party, for the sake of heroism, if it's a heroic campaign in particular, for them to be able to mop the floor with bad guys and kind of have that. I always think back to The Princess Bride when Inigo Montoya storms the castle with Fezzik. It's like they're met with zero resistance until they get to the Six Finger Man, and then it becomes something that it's a very, very dangerous game. But otherwise, Montoya just stabs and pokes everything that he sees, and it's nothing at all. His skill is so great that that's very heroic, and only the threat really only comes up whenever like a next thrust in the story is incorporated into it. But when it does, then it really does. It needs to mean something to the characters or the players, or otherwise, to your point, if they went from sitting back in their chairs to sitting forward in their chairs. If you notice from one clip to the next, and they were engaged and on a little on edge for sure.
Yeah, and I think like if I was to, ideally, I would have had a clip from my one of my early DMs from 15 years ago or however long, because what we watched there in the clip is very much emulaic of what my experience was stepping into D&D for the first time, where I like we joked about in the past, but the reason Zach kills characters is because Zach's characters got killed. um,
It's payback.
I had like a revolving door, um, and it was fun, right? Like you had to be on your A game, and still you were probably going to die within a few sessions. It's just a really harsh, low level, always sort of campaign that ended up being ran, and I adore that, even into the higher levels if I can manage it. But yeah, we're going to
I'm
talk.
with you. I'm with you on the. Well, I like that one first through eighth level is really the butter zone for me, just because after that it's first of all it's laziness or an inability to think tactically enough, I guess. But it's really hard to start creating really good, challenging, gritty encounters or not encounters necessarily, but just like challenges for your players whenever the tool belt starts getting fuller and fuller and more full, right? Now you got smoke bombs and you got lightning bolts and you got this and you got that. And they kind of have the Swiss Army knife approach to anything that you throw in front of them, they probably have something to thwart it, which is fine. It's not that I can't be outthought or outfoxed by my players. I want that to happen, but at the same time, it seems like it becomes, instead of them thinking ingenuitively or thinking out of the box to make something easier than it should have been, it's not that. It's just they've got so much crap that they can call on.
Yeah.
All they have to do is manage and remember what their resources are, and there's probably something in there somewhere that they can just huck at it, and then there we go.
But going back to my early days of D&D, I had a DM for the longest time that would it would go in waves. Sometimes he would be for us, and then other times he would be against us. And like to the point of he would set up something, and it's like there's no way we're going to get out of this. Case in point, I don't remember the actual what had happened, but my cousin had just started playing with us, and he was, yes, when in doubt, make a longer lava tube. Exactly. Transported my cousin's character into one of the planes of hell, and I think we were like around level 10 or so. He was by himself, and that was back in the day where when something happened, you took the player into the hallway and you would tell them and whatever. The rest of us at the table here, thousands? What do you mean thousands? And we're like, well, what the heck's going on? And so the DM comes back and he's like, and we're like, okay, so where's he at? It's like, you don't know. And it's like, I'll come back to you in about 15 minutes when I get into talking to these guys. And we're all like, well, what? But, and it's like, well, he just disappeared and you smell brimstone and all this stuff. And it's like, somebody remembered that we had a crystal ball. So we pulled that out and used that to figure out that he was transported to one of the planes of hell, and he's standing on top of a hill, and he's just surrounded by thousands of demons. And it's like, well, you're level 10. This is 2nd edition AD&D. Hey, you're gonna die. And at the end of it, we actually saved him. I had a ring of genie summoning that that everybody had forgotten about, and through using that, we got him back. But it was like after it was all said and done, I was like, dude, how'd you set that up? How did you think we were going to get out of it? He's like, I didn't know. It's like, did you remember the ring? He's like, no.
No.
He's so
was there something else
about it?
Yeah. Was there something else that one of us had that you thought we would use? He's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's perfect. That's a perfect example, Troy, because it ties directly in. This encounter that we just watched a snippet of. He's built an adventuring party that is like 3 levels above the current one, right?
Yeah.
His party of players, and it's a mono fight. the party is designed to get their ass handed to them, right? Like that's the design of the fight. And he's like, but he'll talk about it if you watch his videos. He'll say, I assumed that I was not going to be able to play 6 characters at the quality level that each one of my players was going to play their one character, and that was going to make up the difference. Um, and again, like I watch those things, I watch how the combats play out, and I'm like, this is cool and it's meaningful, and the players engage, and there's stakes, and they're pulling things out like crystal balls and genies. They do stuff like that in that combat later on, and you're like, oh, that's how I want it to feel. I don't want it to feel like, oh, I blew my long rest abilities and a few of my spell slots. Then I kind of hung out with some cantrips for a while, and it was over. Um, it should feel intense, even if it's not going to be a TPK every round, or it's not threatening. That it needs to have some level of intensity.
That oh crap moment.
Yeah, you need to be sweating a little bit.
Yeah. So speaking of sweating, I think I can move over to the next clip that I'm going to show you. Now, this DM is my absolute favorite. I love watching this guy work, and 100%, this is the person that I've watched hundreds of hours of at this point, just to say, like, how can I be very much that? And so this is Jerry Holkins from the Penny Arcade Acquisitions Incorporated crew. Usually he's a player in it, Omen Drawn, but he has his own show where he is the dungeon master. And there's a ton of clips. I mean, I went back and watched, I don't know, maybe an hour's worth of footage in preparation for this, and I'm like, man, I could pull so many. The thing that I love about Jerry is the way he sets a scene, the way he describes a room, the way he pulls people in to what's going on with just the right words, just the right pace, just the right tone. It's not a lot of silly voices or great voices or anything like that, not to disparage that, but it's him and him alone making you feel like you are there in the space. So, John, if you wouldn't mind, play that clip.
You got it.
People's individual rooms where you can see the simple door that led into your sister Thedrel's room. You can see that her room has been thoroughly dismantled, and the things that are left in there are things that no one wanted or thought that they could thought would have any kind of value in any kind of market afterward. But you can see on the floor, sort of poking out almost from the bed, you can see what you think is the cover of a book.
Wait a minute. I give you one of these, like, the SWAT team, like.
For the podcast, he's making crazy
gestures.
He's
making hand signs.
At the end, I think it was the Macarena.
I started doing Macarena.
Oh, it was
A little
Macarena.
bit.
Okay.
Wait in the hallway. Do the Macarena till I return. No, come in. It doesn't matter. So let's.
I'm like, hey, what?
Yeah, I'll stop here, and I will wander in there and pull this out.
Yeah. Whatever scent type memories you would have associated with it, there isn't any hint of it. This is not a place where people live anymore. The book itself is a book of what are, functionally speaking, fairy tales. So there's a very common drow fairy tale about, and it's retold in many different ways, but it is about a girl who seeks Lolth's wisdom and then is visited by various incarnations of Lolth, and invariably these young women succeed. So long as they follow the correct path. Occasionally there's a version of it that involves them being insufficiently cruel, or in the moment of victory, not going for the kill. Such young women are punished in stories like these.
So I had to keep that first part in because I was like, it's great because it's for the podcast, and then we don't have to say for the podcast. But yeah, I love the way that he steps in and describes like the book, and it's like tucked underneath the skirt of the bed there, and you open it up, and it's this book of fairy tales, and then all of this is made up on the fly, and he just like, oh, it's a fairy tale book, but it's for Drow, and then he starts weaving in like bits of Drow lore, so to speak, into it, and giving people tastes of it, all the while kind of setting the tone for what this book should feel like, right? I just, that's what I want to do every time. I'm like, can I just describe things like that? I'll be happy.
One of the things that immediately jumped out to me, because when in preparation for this, I got the files first and had a chance to, I watched them a couple of times, right, just to make sure all the timing was right. And every time it would play, I'd be like, his voice that he's using is very, it's almost like a whisper, right? It's forcing you to really pay attention to what he's saying. You kind of have to like lean forward a little bit into it to make sure that you're hearing exactly what he's saying, because he's not yelling it. It's not this very bombastic, loud method of making sure that my players are paying attention. It's the polar opposite. It's the other end of the spectrum of, if you want to hear what it is that I have to say, first of all, I'm not going to repeat it, but you're going to have to listen. You're going to have to be really quiet and still. You're going to have to look up, and you're probably, in order to make sure that you know what's going on, and it's almost, I hate to use the word, but almost hypnotic, the way that he does it. It's this very monotone, almost a drone in the way that he delivers it. It's really, really interesting.
But there's something to it though. It's weird. It's not a monotone droning sound. It's just very informational and very in the scene kind of thing. And if you watch when you watch the clip and you notice the rest of the players, they're all kind of like focusing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to look at anything else. I'm just going to look down here and listen. And because you see Chris every once in a while kind of look up at him and kind of nod and go back to kind of it's really kind of cool to see how he sucks them in with that, because it's very different than like with my clips. But yeah, it's very interesting because he's very subdued. He's very it's like, I'm just letting the words paint the picture, and that's it.
Yep. And that's what I like so much. And then Bear Droid's bringing up the second piece that I love about Jerry's DMing style, which is that he's very comfortable with riffing off of his players, right? It's a very collaborative, adventuring process. We had a moment last night in a game that I ran where it's very much like that, where on the fly, don't tell someone who listens to this podcast that I said this, but we had an interaction with their character where, in the moment, based on who came forward to interact with the thing, I was riffing off of that and saying, okay, you came up, so what's your subclass? What's your, and like making the story kind of form fit around the archetype that player character was, and what they were presenting. And it's just a lot of fun. So, yeah, other streams I watch from time to time for specific things, like the Colville, and I'm like, I want a better combat, so I'll watch Colville. Jerry, I watch for the whole package and say, how do I just take what he's doing and drop it in over here? So
very cool.
Yeah. So I'll add one more thing about the way that not just his voice, but with his voice is delivery and the method that he's using with it. Right. It's not going to always be that same kind of delivery, or like that same, again, like almost like a whisper, right? He's using like in whether in choir or music lessons, or not music, vocal lessons or anything like that, that you're using the range of your voice to express yourself. And so he's going to have these like highs, lows, and plateaus in the way that he delivers, but you can tell he's very deliberate. Like, in this moment, it's very important for me to be like this in the way that I deliver it, as opposed to not every single moment is the ringmaster of a circus where you have to be really loud to make sure you maintain like okay, so you guys you're sneaking, right? It doesn't have to be like really loud the entire time for him. He's using the full range of his delivery to, which is really interesting. You see that with some of the others too. Like, I've seen that with even in the one episode of watching Critical Role, seeing Mercer does the same thing, where he'll start low, he'll get big, and he'll shrink back down again, and it'll become conversational. So he's using the full range of like delivery in order to deliver it as best as possible for the scene. It's cool.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So those are going to be my two clips. And really those are the two that I would like. Troy's going to bring up the other people that I would pay attention to for inspiration by and large here after a bit. But I think if I steal from if there's masters that I'm going to steal from, these are going to be the first two. So
right on.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with stealing from either one of them. Colville is our patron saint for a reason. Everything he does is just so solid.
Yeah. And I literally have Jerry's words tattooed on my arm, so like I can't not refer to him. So, John, here I'll hand it off to you. Who do you got for us? What do you got for us?
Oh boy! So mine, I don't want. Okay, so for the listener out there, I don't watch streams, but what I do love is I love the philosophy of being a dungeon master, and like these almost like ancient wisdom that is being passed from one dungeon master to the other that I can get equally to be able to utilize in my own game. So I love hearing other DMs and just they just talk about the method, as opposed to just instead of just displaying it. It's like pulling back the curtain and showing how they got to that point, what their thought process is while they're delivering it, before they deliver it, whatever their prep is, and their method. I love the method, right? And so I'll go back to Matt Colville like every single time. It was cool watching Matt explode. I think I started out at like when he was like 15,000 subs on YouTube, and is like very, very, it was the quality was still there, but he had like the hour long, like he would just go on and on and on, and I loved it. And I was always upset when it was like an 8 or 10 minute long video, because I would like just let it play in the background like a person would do. Most people would probably do with like a podcast, because I absolutely loved it. But for one of the things about Matt that I adore is whenever he has something, when he's really prepared, because he's a writer, and he's not just a really great DM. A lot of his method comes from being a professional writer first, going to school for writing, and so his delivery comes from being really prepared with his words. And so the clip that I'm going to talk about is about where he talked about using skill challenges and kind of like cobbling something together for 5e that was very similar to the 4e method of skill challenges, but doing it in a way to where it didn't feel like a skill challenge. Because I always saw, man, skill challenges would be really, really cool if they worked right. But I always blamed 4E for why they didn't work right, and not because of the way that they were told to be delivered. The idea had merit, but the way that he explains it is so much better. So this clip is really him delivering a skill challenge through a narrative. Like, this is the narrative form of the skill challenge. So let's go ahead and we'll get that started really quick here.
Calarol the Vile lies dead on the floor of the summoning chamber. Before the surviving members of the Revenant Vow can celebrate, the Black Keep begins to shake. They are 5 levels below ground, deep underneath the keep. As the floor beneath them shifts, as the walls around them shudder, as the ceiling above them begins to crack and splinter, the heroes realize they have only moments to escape before the entire keep collapses around them. They must carefully navigate their escape. If they fail, they will be buried here with Calorel, and the world will never hear of their deeds. Sigurd leads the party. Carefully retracing their steps backward through the maze they navigated to get here, he successfully leads the characters backward through the labyrinth, never making a wrong turn. Baltair passes a doorway on the way out. He stops and realizes that based on the geometry of the keep, it must lead to a stairway up. "Follow me," he says, and opens the door. The heroes come to a T intersection, unsure of which way to go. Nosa detects a faint breeze coming from the right. That corridor must lead to the world above. "This way," she shouts. Sigurd halts and looks at the ground. He thinks he sees tracks. He's unsure. As he tries to read the ground to detect if there's a faster way out, he fails to notice the giant block of masonry about to shake loose from the ceiling and crush him. But Baltair, the human monk, notices it. In an instant, he pushes Sigurd out of the way, and the masonry falls on Baltair, dislocating his shoulder. But Sigurd is alive. The party skids to a stop, the corridor in front of them blocked by a giant column of stone that is broken loose and blocks their way. Baltair approaches the stone. Concentrating for a moment to gather his strength, he heaves and lifts and hurls the stone out of the way, clearing the passageway. As the heroes desperately ascend through the dungeon below the keep, as the walls around them shake and crumble and collapse, Sigurd stops and notices something strange about the wall next to him. It's a secret door with a stairway leading up, another level closer to safety. Having found shortcuts and secret doors they never used to get down here in the first place, the heroes now find themselves tantalizingly close to the surface. The shaking of the keep becomes more violent. Walls and ceilings collapse around them. They are about to be crushed under the keep and buried with Calorel. Facing a 4-way intersection, no obvious choice, Sigurd notices tracks leading to the right. "This way," he shouts, and leads the party to the final staircase and freedom. Standing under the sun in the daylight outside on the grass surrounding the keep, they watch as the giant monument of Calorel the Vile collapses.
There we go.
It speaks to, it helps that narrative challenge is what it actually produces, right? That's kind of the way, instead of us calling it a skill challenge or a skill encounter or something like that, it's really more of a narrative challenge that is, you either bypass or you make your way through by a means of like your character's wits or whatever the skills they have at their disposal, right? And so between the skill challenge part of this is kind of what I glommed onto at first, but I mean, I just love the way that like every single possible thing that could go wrong is the thing that does go wrong whenever you're trying to escape. And he creates this really amazing narrative approach to explaining how giving the characters an opportunity to bypass or to circumnavigate those challenges or everything that could go wrong. And engaging with them in that narrative, as opposed to it just being him. Even though, in that clip it's just him talking, but that's really their narration of what he'd already done previously with his characters. But his characters were the one that came up with those solutions, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not as if he's presenting that this is how you would verbalize a skill challenge in the moment, but this is the atmosphere that you want to evoke, that like everybody, like the thing that I like about it is that there's a ton of variety and that it feels epic and that you feel the momentum moving you towards something. And I remember watching this clip, back when this running the game episode aired. It'd be like, okay, yeah, I think I can like get behind how to do a skill challenge now, because it's from a different vantage point than a combat is in D&D, right? That's the thing that he presents, is that it's like the camera's panned back,
right,
and taking in a bigger portion of the scene. You're not seeing the nitty-gritty details, but you're seeing everything that's happening and how the characters are moving through it.
Yeah. In order for it to move at this pace, I think your players are really going to have to be like, there's almost a certain like leading, like they have to follow the lead. It's like without it being overly obvious that it's a skill challenge, instead of having to say like you come at an intersection, what do you do? Having to say what do you do over and over and over and over again, I think is one of the challenges that I would see in it. But if you have the players that have that mentality and that mindset, and if you've created a cinematic feel to what's going on around them, I think it makes it a lot easier. I actually, talking about stealing from the masters, I legit stole this for the end of my 2-year Ravenloft campaign. So the Curse of Strahd, the ending was they kill Strahd, but that's not the end. They have to get out. Castle Ravenloft is crumbling to the ground. The pillar is about to fall. They're about to be crushed and killed by the debris, yada, yada, yada. And they've got to navigate their way out of this labyrinthine like castle. And so I totally snaked this from. I put my own stuff in there that act as obstacles between them and freedom. But man, it really it was the perfect ending. It wasn't just the bad guy dies and then that's it. That's the end of that. There are repercussions, dangerous repercussions to the bad guy dying. Well, we've made it this far. Are we still going to be able to make it, or are we going to lose anybody else along the way?
Yeah. He talks about, I don't know if it's in this episode or one around it, but he talks about using timers sometimes, like little hourglass timers to kind of help the party, force them to make fast decisions because a slow decision is as bad as the wrong decision in this sort of thing. Yeah, it's really cool. What else you got for us?
Yeah, so the other one that I've got, I'll kind of give a key in on this one is, again, it's philosophy. And so as much as I love Colville, my crush is going to always end up being Joe Manganiello just because he's just a cool dude, and I have never seen him actually run a game of D&D yet, but he seems like he just chews up an interview with some really, really with some great nuggets of wisdom that I love. And it's I think one of the reasons why I like him so much, aside from just like his personality and his charisma, is he has a very similar kind of game, the kind of game he's trying to run, or he's trying to like create that same atmosphere as an atmosphere that I really want to, or I'm chasing after for my table. I really want a moment very similar to the one that he's going to talk about coming up next, and that is, go big. Really, it's like go big or go home. Like it's this very theatrical approach to narrating combat, narrating encounters, narrating the drama of the story. You see a little bit of that already with Matt Colville, but this is like, you can tell this is an actor who's wanting to act out the scene and chew up every second of the scene for the sake of the players, in order to create a very cinematic experience for them, as opposed to just a game. This is their movie, and they are the actors portraying their characters in it. So let's go ahead and let's give that a watch, and we'll see what we think about that.
Like, think big, think cinematic, think. Like, don't hold back. What's the coolest image you can have in your mind? What's the movie that you want to see? Go create that. Create that situation. I love describing combat. A lot of times when we get through a couple of cool rounds of combat, if people have done some really cool things, I'll recap. So I'm walking them through and I'm acting out the combat, and so then it was this, and then you did this, and then he hit with that, and then boom, the fireball, but then he fell off the balcony, and then the dragon whipped its tail, so it was boom, up against the wall, and
I mean, I want that experience for my players. You're not going to have that at every single session, right? But when the time is right, and that something climactic happens, I want it to go really, really big and have that moment for my players. Like I'm starving for it at every single table whenever I'm running something. And it's to hit, like you said, I've used it before, even before I found this clip, a very cinematic engagement where the movie is playing in your head and you're able to see everything unfold.
Troy, I don't know how you feel about this, but when I watched John's clips, and yours, but certainly John's, I was like, Yeah, these are of course the two clips that John would pick. Like,
I don't know how to
it's like
interpret that, if it's a good thing or a
how
bad
do we
thing.
how do we describe a scene as big and theatrical and cinematic, which is your style, right? Like of like really like you know putting all the packing all the spectacle in a good way, all the spectacle and visualizations and sensory detail and all that we can into as tight of a moment as we can, right?
Yeah.
How much of this can I pack into you entering this room, or you eating this meal, or
Yes,
this
meals
combat
in particular. Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean that's
it's the special effects. That's to me. That's what he's talking about. Keeping in the cinematic concept. It's the special effects. It's the CGI. It's the big explosions. It's the cool, uh, force lightning and all that good stuff that really sucks you into watching. Or as he was talking about describing the combat, it's narrating a Jason Bourne combat. The quick cuts and the harsh strikes and the different camera angles, and it makes it kinetic. It makes it exciting.
yeah, and but with him, he's putting his whole body into it, which I think is great. Like I noticed that when the more excited I get about a scene or a moment in a game, I stand up at the table, and my arms flail and even wider and bigger in every moment because to that point. I mean, like I think my style of DMing probably comes quite a bit from movies. I love movies and I love big movies. Some of my favorite stuff ever is like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. It's the very small moments are beautiful and I love them, but the reason why I went to the theater instead of trying to watch it at home was because I wanted a spectacle. I wanted a lot of, not necessarily like Michael Bay explosions necessarily, but I wanted something that would take me to a place that was so fantastical that it would blow my mind, whether I was a kid or even as an adult now. And I continue now even to chase after that same feeling. It's harder and harder to get a hold to as you get older because you've seen so much more. You've already seen a lot of the stuff, right? But yeah, I'm proud of that. So I love. I want if that's what a player's looking for. That's the kind of thing I want my players to have, and I encourage it, and I try to nurture that same kind of thing. Like I'm not the only person that has to describe it like this, so I'll hand off to my players and say, "You tell me what happened. How did you get out of this? This whole this grapple or something like that. How did you slip out of it, or how did you, did you decapitate the ogre, or what did you do? Right? Let them be a part of creating that cinematic piece. So
yeah. Anything else you want to go for on that? Yeah. Well, let's move on to Troy then, and get. I appreciate again. I'm not gonna steal any of your thunder here, Troy. But like, as soon as you name these two, you're like, I want these two moments. I'm like, of course you do. Like these are very Troy-like moments that he's capturing and trying to like. Yeah. When we set this up as stealing from the masters, and you guys submitted these as clips, I'm like, "Yup." And this anybody who has sat at our tables, at least from my point of view, should see these influences after watching these clips.
At least I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least a small taste of it, right? So go ahead, Troy.
Both of my clips come from Matt Mercer in Critical Role. Not because he's an awesome DM. I am a Critical Role fan, as you guys have known from the last one of the last episodes. But I love Matt Colville. Jerry Holkins. I have not watched a lot of him, but I've watched him as Omen Drawn. There's so many to choose from, but I am the most familiar with Mercer in action. So that's kind of where I gravitated to for this. And the first clip is him. I'm just gonna say what it is, John. Then go ahead and play it. Basically, it's him bringing an NPC to life, and it's kind of how I like to do things. So, John, go ahead.
You got it.
Mostly. And he turns around and you can see now what you failed to notice when you first noticed is that where once there was 5, there is now 3 fingers.
Oh, yes. No, he has character progression.
What will he do? That's impressive.
Learn from my mistakes.
Can learn 3 more times easily.
I can. 3 more. And he wanders off and starts rummaging through a bunch of stuff. He's kind of
Victor, I was hoping you would have some black powder for sale.
I'm on it, hold on! And he whips around with this this kind of metallic cylinder that is like very well sealed. And he's like, see, I learned from my mistakes.
That's very impressive. Oh.
And he walks very carefully, like very gingerly placing it on the table. Oh. Okay. Carefully. He pulls out like a small torch. Have to unseal the metal.
Let's not do that! And I make...
I love that clip.
Yeah. And so that to me is how I like to try and portray my characters, my NPCs. It's not just the voice, because not everybody can do the voice, but he embodies the NPC. He hunkers down, in this case, Victor, he hunkers down. He has the one hand missing the fingers, and he holds the mouth in a different position, and he's frenetically moving around and acting like he's digging through stuff. And if you can't do voices, and a lot of DMs are, I'm not good at that. Fine, don't. There's so many different ways to embody a character. The big strong paladin that you're talking to, you sit up straight, puff your chest out, that kind of thing. Just emulate what you think that character would be like. And I think Mercer does that the best out of anybody that I've seen. Where you've got Hulkins who there was no flamboyant actions to him. He delivered, and he explained, and he described, and you could see that mental image. With Mercer, it wasn't just a mental image. You had something that you could reference in his physicality and his movements and things like that. And that's one of the things that I like to do, or at least try to do, when I'm running a game. I don't know how well it translates doing it online through Roll20, but
there's physicality to it, yeah.
Yeah, there's a physical. So it definitely helps to be in person to do that.
Yeah, but I remember, I remember some of your characters and some of the VDD weekends, and hearing my players filter in and be like, "Oh, I saw Troy over here doing this or whatnot." It does carry through it to some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we talked about Matt's players. And obviously we talked about Jerry's players, so we'll talk about Mercer's players here, right? Like, all of them are engaged, and this is a season 1 clip, so there's an authenticity to it, even more so here, I think. And we as the audience are engaged too, right? Like, we have this great now smorgasbord of 3 DMs in the moment, at least, presenting, and we're drawn into all of them in further different ways.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I like that. Jerry has a very different DMing style. Matt Cole has a very different DMing style. So does Matt Mercer, right? But to me, they are equally great. I have my favorite between them, but they're great. Like, one of the things we've tried to figure out is, what do you distill it down to? What makes a great DM? I think one of the reasons why it's impossible to say is because there's no way to put it all in one person, and if you did, it would be so muddled that it wouldn't be good anymore. It's the differences that make them that make them stand out and make them great. But there's no formula that where you can plug and play the variables in as if I train in improv and I do this, and if I go and see a voice acting coach, and maybe they'll teach me how to do this thing or whatever. It's like I think that just speaks more and more to each DM finding the thing that they're really amazing at, or the thing that they're really good at, and become amazing at it and lean into it, as opposed to you don't have to be somebody else. You can love the things that they do and you want to mimic them, and get really good at some of them, but it's okay for you to do the things that make you great specifically, and you will find the players that love the way that you run those games.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Because if you take the best bits of Colville and the best bits of Holkins, the best bits of Brennan and the best bits of Mercer, and you put them all together, and you make this Frankenstein DM of all the best qualities of all the awesome DMs that you see out there in the world. Does that suddenly become the absolute epitome, icon, best DM ever? No, I feel like everything is a wash at that point because there's nothing to glom onto. So, it kind of desensitizes you to what makes those DMs great.
Like it gets lost, right? The different values that a DM brings, they get lost in all of it. There's just too much noise if they're trying to do everything. I feel like that's what would end up happening if you had that Frankenstein DM that had all of those different traits and characteristics in one.
Well, nobody's gonna. I mean, we're not gonna see that come to the table. But if a person is trying, they're probably mediocre at all, right? Like,
right.
I mean, there may be somebody out there that we haven't encountered, so that would be awesome. I would love to sit at their table if they had the whole, package, so to speak, of that. But
as long as it came natural to them. I mean, and that's kind of, over years, these DMs have created these abilities and these skills.
So describe this next clip for us, Troy.
Okay, the next one also Matt Mercer. It's how he is bringing. The first one was bringing an NPC to life. This one, to me, is how he's bringing the environment to life. So go ahead, John.
Yep.
The left lever seems to be. You now see as you get close, it's connected to many of these chains around. You can see there's actually within this island, what initially you didn't notice, intricate little bits of clockwork that weave behind, and the lever on the left, if pulled, would probably release all of the chains.
Okay.
The lever on the right seems to be affixed to a network that connects directly to the two chains that attach to its sides of its jaw. And you gather if they were pulled, it might force the jaw open.
Oh, so he can feed things to the dreadnought.
Good. All right.
Yeah. So for those of you that listening to the podcast, you couldn't see the clip, but very much like bringing the NPC to life, Mercer uses his entire body when he's talking about, he's showing you how the levers turn. He's showing you the things up, the chains and how they expand way out.
I love how hang on. I love how you're like, for the people of the podcast, and then you're doing
and then
all
I'm
the
doing
motions.
the same thing. I have to. I can't do it without. I'll sit on my hands. But yeah, he's using his hands and his arms to show you the magnitude of what he's talking about. If it's
And how
something
they interlink and
if it's something small, he's getting minute, and his hands are close together, and he's showing you like just with his little pinches of his fingertips and things like that. But it's as Holkins paints the picture with only his words, and you saw his players focused, and they may not have been looking directly at Jerry while he's talking, but you could tell they were creating the image that he was explaining in their minds.
Mm-hmm.
With Mercer, not only does he use his words, all of his players are focused on him, and they're watching him because not only is he painting with his words, he's painting with his body. He's painting with his arms and his gestures and things like that to kind of keep you sucked in. And if you watch enough of Critical Role, I think you'll see that. I mean, he does it all the time, but he also uses it to kind of convey a sense of urgency. at times, or if it's something that's more laid back, his arms move slow, his hands move slow. He kind of does more almost like just like a dance with his hands. If it's something that's going on right now, some kind of a combat, his arms are flailing and he's flapping around like a madman, trying to describe these settings and these encounters and things like that. And that's just how I naturally talk anyway. I think I talk more with my hands than I do my mouth.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, it's nice to actually see someone, hey, here's a really good DM that does the same thing that I do, so I must not be that bad.
Well, that's I'm telling you, that's the way that I felt about whenever Joe Manganiello was talking about.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It was like everything is really big, and using your hand. Like the thing where places where I've actually seen him run were like just in like really quick snippets, like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever. And like almost every single time I've seen him, he's done like this hand outstretched, like he's crushing someone's skull in the palm of his hand. Like what that motion, right? Is like, but again, that's really theatrical. And so when it's theatric, you can't just rely on your voice to carry the story and what's going on. To your point, you have to use your whole body. And I like what you said before for the DMs out there that are like, either I'm not interested in using silly voices or voices at all, or I'm just not good at accents or whatever. Fine. If you want to find another method, this is another layer, another tool that you can use if you want to. I think one of the things that a lot of DMs have a struggle with, I should say, the ones that I've talked to, is like there is a barrier or an internal barrier that they have to kind of like smash through of being willing to look silly to do so for something like that. Using your whole body, you run the risk of looking silly and dumb when you do it, especially like Matt was doing. Like,
thanks.
You're welcome. Look, that's you and me both, man, because I do this. You know me. That's pretty obvious. I'm willing to be a fool, and even I still do it too. Like I still like have that internal monologue with myself, like, oh my god, is this the moment where this is what people are going to remember from now on? Is this dork that just went whole hog on and had a conniption fit at the table?
I kind of feel like, it's kind of like, when you're walking down the sidewalk and you look across the street and you see somebody flailing their arms about and acting all crazy. What you don't see is they just walk through a spider web. So the people that are watching you from afar run a game of D&D that don't know what's going on. Yeah, they think you're a fool. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care what you think. I'm not running the game for you. I'm running the game for my table. They're seeing the big dragon. They're seeing the large dwarven doors. They're seeing the pillars fall and crushing the fleeing townsfolk and things like that. They're my audience, not the person that's way over there thinking that this person's a maniac.
Well, I think you're right. I think part of the thing is that I don't know a single player that doesn't eat that up.
Mm-mm.
I mean, they can get to a point where it might be awkward. I don't know where the law of the diminishing returns happens. Exactly where that is, where you get to a point where the voices are so silly, or there are too many of them, or you flail your arms too much and people are kind of off put by it or not. But most of the players that I've ever run for, they love it. They eat it up whenever. The more animated I get, as long as it's not like I'm not actually hurting anyone at the table, the more they love it. So I say lean into it. That's the thing. Is like I'm challenging all the other DMs to allow themselves the space to do that without worrying about what people are going to think to the negative, right? If they just don't want to do it because it's not their thing, then that's fine. But if it's something that they have any interest in trying or doing, or they see someone else doing, like, God, man, I wish I could do that. The only thing that's separating you from not doing it and doing it is you. And it's going to be, it doesn't matter how bad you think it is, your players are probably going to love it. So you may as well go ahead and just let yourself have it.
They're gonna appreciate the effort that you're gonna put into it. Your voices, if you use them, may suck. They may be horrible. They may all sound just like you, even though you think they don't. But your players are going to notice those slight differences you give it. I draw the line at jumping up on top of the table. I'm not going to do that. Chair, yes. Table, no.
No.
I don't want to lose any more dice after that last couple times. But yeah, just the more you can draw people in, and a lot of these techniques are great for kids.
Oh yeah.
You want to pull kids into the game. The more you think you're acting a fool, the more they're gonna love it. The family that I met at Gen Con that I always talk about, the youngest was sitting right beside me, and the dwarven caravan master just kind of, so what do you think? What do you think I should do here? What you want to go check that out for me? And she just ate it up. She just thought that was the coolest thing. She kind of like looked, she would mirror me, and it was just so much fun. The adults at the table thought it was really cool, and they got into it too. So
well, kids, how often do adults actually play with kids like that?
Not enough.
Not
Not
enough.
enough.
My 5-year-old is starved to be played with like that. I can't do it enough for her. So I can't imagine the kid that doesn't have a giant dork for a dad that's willing to do voices and cartwheels in the living room and crap like that for her. So I'm not surprised that she ate it up at all.
Oh, hear that, y'all? Come to Winter Fantasy, and we'll get John to do cartwheels in the game hall.
I'm good at them. Thank you very much. Don't let the fat fool you, man. Don't let the husk fool you. I am athletic.
Oh, Girk says him and Ferricine will be there.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, if you're there, I'll do a cartwheel. Done. It's that
There we
easy.
go.
I ain't ashamed.
Commitment.
It's commitment. I'm committed. Right there.
Ain't no shame in my gymnastics game.
I suddenly hurt my back. Oh.
Good thing you have till February.
Oh crap. Yeah, that's true.
But,
I
yeah.
loved it. This was good. I enjoyed it. I don't know how our audience feels or how the podcast audience feels, but like this was very enjoyable for me to put these clips together. I pulled each one out of the videos and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, like this is a real thing. Like this isn't something that we contrived and we're like, yeah, these are maybe like we learned a lesson here or there. Like, nope. I felt like this is a valid presentation.
Well, I think we've said it multiple times that every clip speaks exactly to what we expected out of each person. It's like, yep, those are Zach clips. Yep, that's a Troy clip. Yep, John.
Yep, exactly.
So before we get out of here, these are the people that these DMs that we've have clips of are accessible to everybody out there in listening and viewing land.
Mm-hmm.
I want all of us, the three of us, to give our own little snippet from tables that we've actually played at, DMs that we've played under. What's something from them that we've added into our repertoire?
Lead us off with
and
it.
Maybe not even DMs, just tables in general.
Yeah. Lead off. Lead on, Macduff. What do you have for us, Troy?
I would say that the story that I told about my DM and sending my cousin to hell, I have kind of taken a hold of that. And I like to put my players in situations where I don't know how they're going to get out of it. I don't know if they will get out of it. Mm-hmm. Because if I don't know and they don't know, that makes when they do get out of it, and somehow, so far, they always have. They pull things out of nowhere. It's like you said, they're pulling out the utility belt, and things are starting to, they're rifling through their inventory lists, and they're pulling things out that they've forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is an absolute blast. And when they're done, when the session is done, and they're all beaten and bruised, but they've made it out. Hopefully, most of them have made it out. They're just kind of like, oh man, how did you come up with that? And you're just kind of like, I just threw some stuff together and wanted to see if you'd live through it. Kind of a thing. I really love that. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
To watch that play out.
Yeah.
That sense of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I can throw one in. I have a different one, a weird one, or an odd one. How about I talk about how I watched one of my early DMs transitioned to being a player, and that was very interesting, right? Um, One of my early DMs, uh, a campaign wrapped up, and he took the seat of the player. And what was interesting to me in that, and something that I find very fascinating, is that I came to understand that when it was his turn to sit in the chair, not the head chair, but on the side, he would deliberately make characters that were, either he would random roll everything, or he would make something that was deliberately subtle, deliberately not super powerful, deliberately a side character, right? Something that doesn't take center stage. And it was, and I don't know why that was for him necessarily, but my lesson from that, or the thing that I took from that, is the random thing, or the lackluster thing was could be of his way of challenging himself and saying, like, let me see what I can do here. But it's also the way of saying, my spotlight was for the last 6 months or 2 years or whatnot when I was running this, and now when I sit down, um, not that I'm not going to participate, I'm certainly going to participate, but I'm going to make it so that it's very difficult for me to take that spotlight more often than not. And so if you play with me now, at a table, almost certainly Zach will come with a silly character or just a odd character. Our friend Janine says that Zach comes with like the backwoods character almost every time, which is probably true. Like the character that's ignorant about everything and just going with the flow. Um, uh, so yeah, that's the thing that I picked up.
That's cool. Yeah, I do something very similar. I don't necessarily play courage. Yeah.
Yeah, courage. Yeah, courage. Girk's recalling a character that he
Yeah.
experienced in mine. Yeah.
I don't necessarily play, weird, weird off the wall characters, but I'll play the one that he doesn't have all the answers. You don't want him to be the leader.
No.
You know,
No.
a lot of times he's going to end up being some kind of unintentional, not over the top, hopefully, comedy relief.
Yeah. 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 What about you, John?
Yeah, so for me, mine is I know that I'm a dang dirty screener. I use the DM screen. But one of the things that my buddy Eck did a really great job of was using just the screen for dramatic advantage and the lack of the screen for dramatic advantage too. Like folding up the screen at certain moments and putting it off to the side. And all right, and he go like whenever the big fight happens, like after all this time getting to the big bad or whatever the mini boss, even the mini boss sometimes, right? Or a dramatic fight's coming up. It's like, and guess what? All the roles are in the open. Just so you know, because just so you know, there's no fudging on this end. The combat's going to end up unfolding the way that it does, right? Especially whenever there's a really important, if the fight or the encounter or the scene, there's like a turning point in it. Then we're putting the screen away and we're like completely transparent in order to ratchet up the tension in the moment.
I love that. I love that. I went to Origins this year with note cards and a pencil and a set of dice. That's how I ran Origins the whole weekend. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
John with his lack of screen and like all that discussion that we've talked about. I'm like, I wonder if I could run it without any resources. And I did. So I pulled out one note card for every session, set it in front of me, set my set of dice in front of me, whipped out a pen. I'm like, all right, let's do this.
You make my eye twitch, man. You make my eye twitch.
It was so much fun.
This past Origins was probably the least prepared I felt like that I was for an in-person, just because of everything that was going on at the time.
Yeah.
But even like I had like one set, quote unquote, set piece or map, and I just wore the hell out of it.
To be fair, I brought a little collection of minis, but nothing. But what I didn't have was like a repertoire of like a screen and like things to stick on it for initiative and like all the tools of the DM. I'm like, can I run a game with just a note card? And it's actually pretty fun. And your players, it was very enjoyable to watch them like look over and be like, that's what you're running there.
That's what you're
Yep.
rolling with, huh? Sure is.
Sure is.
Better,
That's
better
right.
be sure.
Yep.
Yep. Let's do it. Well, that was good. I like that. This was a good I enjoyed it a lot.
It was fun.
We wrapped up in about an hour and a half, a little less. I think that's a win for us. Went through a lot of clips, talked about a lot of things. I would like to here's what I would love to do. We've got our Discord chat. If you have streams, or maybe you don't watch streams, and maybe you have podcasts that you think there's a really good episode with DM advice on it, that's not ours. Or you have a YouTuber or Twitch or something that you're like, this person, or maybe it's a book or something like that. This person gives great advice, or I try to emulate how they present things. Let's have that discussion in our Discord. If you reach out to us on Facebook message us. That's a great way. Troy also tucks the links into our
doobly-doo.
Our doobly-doo on the podcast feed. And let's have that discussion over there, because I thoroughly enjoyed watching these fellas clips this week, and I'd like to check out yours as well.
Absolutely, I like that. And
Yeah.
even if you've got I'd like to see some DM stories too. Some of the cool thing that your DM did that other people should know about, or that if you feel like it's like that, my DM is a gift because of this is the way that they run games, and I absolutely love it. And I would love to hear those. My DM is awesome tales. Why are they so awesome?
I will do you one better, John. How about we use mydmsucks@gmail.com just as a collect-all. Anybody out there listening on stream, on the podcast, wherever, if you've got a cool story and you don't want to write it all out, record us a video. Give us a little, or do an audio recording. Email us those stories, and we'll put those together as a special episode. If you've got some cool stories, we want to hear them, and we want to put them out there for other people to hear too. Because
this would be an opportunity.
Cool,
you can blow up your DM. Show them how much there is. Show your DM some appreciation and some love. And we'll help you do the same. We'll provide a platform for showing their greatness.
Yeah. I would be happy to go through those and put them together into an episode. That'd be cool.
That'd be awesome. All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Keep in mind, we've got special guests coming up in the next week or so. So be on the lookout. Lots to do in the next week and a half before our Thanksgiving break here in the States. John and Troy, thanks a lot for hanging out with me on the podcast, on the live stream once again. Kill a lot, Bear Droid, Girk. You all have been awesome.
Yeah,
Anyone who's lurking out in the background.
Yeah. Annie Mosey, another TV viewer. Casino, thanks.
All right. And with that, until next week, we will see you next time.